Imagine becoming rich and deciding not to tell a single person. Not your friends, not your cousins, not your old coworkers, not even the people who say they'd be so happy for you. You say nothing. And here's what most people, including you probably, don't understand about that choice. Attention is expensive. The moment people know you have money, your life changes in ways that have nothing to do with the money itself. And some of those changes are so specific, so strange, that most people who haven't lived it would never guess them. There's a name for this. Some people call it stealth wealth, and it may be the most psychologically interesting thing that happens when someone actually crosses into real financial freedom. But the interesting part is not what you'd expect. It's not about the things you buy. It's not even really about the money. It's about something that quietly disappears. And once it's gone, you realize it was costing you more than anything on your credit card statement ever did. Most people think money is supposed to announce itself. Bigger house, new car, better watch, better vacations, some visible proof that life has changed. But when you actually become wealthy, genuinely wealthy, not just temporarily comfortable, the announcement creates problems you weren't expecting. People start watching you differently. Every decision becomes a signal. If you stay modest, they think you're pretending. If you spend freely, they think you've changed. If you say no to something, they wonder how a rich person could be cheap. If you say yes too often, they start building a version of you in their mind that has no limits. So you do something unexpected. You stay quiet. You keep the same number. You keep the same habits. You keep the same car a little longer than you need to. You let people underestimate you. And being underestimated on purpose turns into something nobody warned you about. Getting rich quietly does not feel the way people imagine. It doesn't feel loud. It feels private. You still wake up in the same bed. You still pour the same coffee. You still stand in line behind someone arguing over a coupon. The world does not pause and say, "Congratulations, you did it." Nothing external really confirms it. But internally, everything shifts. And the shift starts in a place most people never think to look. Not your wallet, not your house, not your wardrobe, your head. For the first time in your life, money stops being the main character in every decision. It doesn't disappear, it just stops screaming. You stop checking your account before small purchases. You stop feeling that little jolt of panic when something breaks. A car repair no longer feels like a personal betrayal. A medical bill is still annoying, but it's not a 5-day emotional event. An unexpected expense no longer hijacks your entire week. That alone feels surreal. People who have never lived with financial pressure do not understand how much noise money creates. It's not just bills. It's background fear. It's mental static. It's the constant low-grade calculation running under everything. Can I afford this? What if rent goes up? What if work slows down? What if something happens? If you grew up without money or came from real instability, you know exactly what that static sounds like. You felt it at the grocery checkout. You felt it reading a menu. You felt it watching your account after a big month. And the strange thing is, even when the money arrives, even when the number changes, part of you still braces. Part of you still looks at the grocery total and tightens. Part of you still feels guilty for buying quality. Part of you still expects the old fear to come back overnight. That's not weakness, that's memory. And that memory shapes every financial decision wealthy people make afterward, even decades later. It explains a pattern in wealthy behavior that looks completely irrational from the outside. When you build quiet wealth, the biggest luxury is not what you buy, it's what stops playing in your head. And once that fear goes quiet, something else goes quiet with it, something you didn't even realize was loud. The need to prove yourself. And this is where quiet wealth starts to reveal something uncomfortable, not just about money, but about most of the spending decisions people make their entire lives. Because here's what wealth psychology and money mindset research actually shows. A lot of people are not spending for comfort, they're spending for evidence. Evidence that they're doing okay, evidence that they matter, evidence that they belong in certain rooms. A nicer car, a nicer apartment, a nicer dinner, a nicer version of visible life. Researchers call this status spending, when your purchases are doing emotional work that your confidence alone can't do. And it's almost invisible while it's happening because it disguises itself as preference. You think you want the nicer thing because it's better. Sometimes that's true, but sometimes the nicer thing is just quieting an internal argument you don't want to have. When you actually have real money, when you've crossed into genuine financial freedom, status starts to feel less convincing. Not because nice things are bad, because you stop confusing display with security. You realize there are people wearing wealth and people quietly owning freedom. Those are not the same thing. One gets attention, win, the other gets options. And options are almost impossible to show off. No one sees the fact that you can walk away from a bad deal. No one sees the fact that you can leave a job you hate. No one sees the fact that an emergency no longer controls you. No one sees the fact that you sleep differently now. That's the strange thing about real financial peace. It barely photographs. And here's the part that confused me for a long time. Why do some people with real money keep spending like they're still proving something, even after there's nothing left to prove? There's a reason people talk about the difference between new money and old money, and it's not really about when the money arrived. This is what the old money mentality actually means, and it's almost never explained correctly. It's not about being cheap. It's not about false modesty. It's not about hiding success out of shame. It's about understanding that the visible version of wealth almost always comes with invisible costs. Attention you didn't ask for, expectations you never agreed to, comparison that never stops, requests that never end, jealousy, distance. Some people don't want your money. They want access to what your money seems to represent: safety, status, escape, validation. And if they think you have all of that, they start relating to you through that filter. Every choice gets reinterpreted. That gift meant more. That no felt worse. That vacation looked bigger. That opinion sounded different because now you're someone with money. That's why silence becomes protection. Not secrecy in a paranoid way. Protection in a psychological way. You keep the money, but you protect the shape of your relationships from being warped by it. Because once people know, some of them can never unknow it. So you keep your life simple, not fake simple, actually simple. You stop buying things just because they look like progress. You stop needing every upgrade to symbolize personal growth. You stop chasing the feeling that your life needs to look expensive to count. And that shift leads somewhere most people don't expect. You become harder to sell to, not because you stop enjoying things, because you stop believing that every premium version of life will finally make you feel complete. You see how many products are really identity props, how many upgrades are emotional purchases wearing practical clothes, how many expensive things are quietly trying to sell relief, importance, or self-respect. And once you notice that, once that pattern becomes visible, you cannot unsee it. Every offer, every sale, every limited time banner starts to look like what it actually is. Someone handing you an emotion and calling it a product. You start making different choices, not cheaper choices, cleaner ones. You spend where it actually improves your life: privacy, convenience, health, time, location, margin, peace. And you stop overspending in the places designed to impress people you don't even like. Not only are you less afraid, you are less tempted. And less tempted is a superpower almost nobody talks about in personal finance. Because most financial advice is about resisting temptation, discipline, budgets, rules. Quiet wealth does something different. It removes the emotional need that created the temptation in the first place. Which brings us back to that memory. Some wealthy people stay understated forever. From the outside, it looks like strategy, like they're keeping the Rolex in the drawer on purpose, making a calculated choice to stay invisible. Sometimes that's true. But often, it's something else entirely. It's memory. They remember too clearly what it felt like to not have enough. They remember the static, the grocery total, the bracing, the 5-day emotional event over a car repair. And that memory never fully leaves. So they don't turn wealth into spectacle. They turn it into insulation. They use money to make life less fragile, not more glamorous. Because glamorous life is high-maintenance life. It needs upkeep. It needs audience. It needs comparison. It needs constant reinforcement. Quiet wealth doesn't. Quiet wealth sits in the background of your life like good lighting. Not flashy, just stable. You notice it most in moments other people would miss entirely. The argument you no longer need to win. The boss you no longer need to impress. The opportunity you can finally say yes to. The week off that doesn't scare you. The emergency that stays an inconvenience instead of becoming a crisis. That's the part nobody claps for. No one sees the disaster that didn't happen. No one sees the stress you dodged. No one sees the version of you that would have panicked 5 years ago. They only see the outside. And on the outside, you still look normal. Wealth is not just about what you can add. It's about what you can ignore. You can ignore bad advice, ignore fake urgency, ignore trends, ignore status games, ignore people trying to drag you into financial theater. You can say, no, I'm good, and mean it. That sentence hits differently when you actually have enough, because most people say, I'm good, while silently calculating, silently adjusting, silently managing the gap between what they have and what the moment requires. When you've built real financial independence, when the gap is gone, I'm good becomes a complete sentence. Not a performance, not a cover, just the truth. And maybe that is the first truly rich feeling. Not buying something expensive, not posting proof, not walking into a luxury hotel lobby pretending you belong there, just calmly realizing you do not have to react to every offer the world throws at you. You can choose. That kind of freedom changes your personality in ways that are hard to describe. It slows you down. It makes you less desperate, less performative, less easy to manipulate, because a lot of bad financial behavior comes from needing immediate emotional relief. You want to feel successful now. You want to feel respected now. You want to feel less behind now. But if you already have enough, that urgency starts to die. And when it dies, your decisions get better. Not perfect, not wise by default. You can still make stupid choices. You can still waste money. You can still get bored and buy nonsense. But the emotional pressure changes. You stop reaching for purchases to fix identity wounds. And if you didn't grow up with money, if you came from instability, embarrassment, constant comparison, building quiet wealth can feel almost disorienting at first, because part of you still expects the old fear to come back. But slowly, steadily, it doesn't. And that quiet is the real inheritance, not a number in an account, the absence of a feeling you used to carry everywhere. So if you ever became rich and told no one, it wouldn't just be about hiding money. It would be about protecting peace. Because once you understand what peace actually costs, you stop spending it for free. You can have millions and still appear incredibly average. Shop at ordinary places, wear ordinary clothes, sit in ordinary traffic, have ordinary conversations, and secretly live with extraordinary freedom. Not because hiding is fun, because privacy lets you enjoy your life without turning it into a public object. No performance, no explanation, no constant signaling, just you, your choices, and the calm that comes from not needing permission anymore. Most people think getting rich means becoming more visible, but for a certain kind of person, the ones who actually keep it, it means becoming less available to pressure, less available to insecurity, less available to random social expectations. You don't need everyone to know you won. You just need to know your life is finally yours. Not yachts, not penthouses, not applause, ownership of your time, of your attention, of your standards, of your future. Being free enough that you no longer care who sees you at all. Before I close, one question. If you came into real money tomorrow, what's the first thing you'd quietly stop doing? Not what you'd buy. What pressure would you drop? Drop that in the comments. I read every one, and the best answers are going into the next video. If this one felt like something you needed to hear, subscribe. The next video goes into why most people's idea of what wealth looks like is completely wrong, and how that one misunderstanding keeps people stuck longer than any bad financial decision they ever made. It might change how you see everything we just talked about.